I'll never forget that Super Bowl night. Not because the game was spectacular, but because that night my entire world began to crumble. Maddie and I were sitting on my best friend Mike's couch, her head resting on my shoulder, holding her fourth Budweiser of the evening. The room was filled with cheers and the smell of potato chips, everyone rooting for their teams. But my attention was completely focused on Maddie. She looked especially beautiful tonight, wearing that blue hoodie I'd bought her long hair cascading over her shoulders. "Hey, Jake," Mike shouted from the kitchen. "When are you two getting married?" Our other friends started chiming in. Sarah and Jessica began clapping. Yeah, proposed already," Maddie giggled. Her cheeks flushed from alcohol and excitement. Wait. She stood up, a bit wobbly. "Do you guys want to hear our love story?" I smiled, expecting her to say something sweet. "I'm going to tell you about the 8 most romantic moments between Jake and me." She raised her beer bottle like she was giving a speech. Everyone in the room turned to look, including me. "The first one," she began, "was when we kissed in that downpour in Chicago." I smiled and nodded, ready to hear her describe our memories. "I remember we came out of the library and suddenly it started pouring rain. We ran to a bus stop to take shelter, but we were still soaked through." I frowned slightly. We'd never kissed in a downpour. "Then Jake pulled me close and kissed me in the rain," Maddie continued, her eyes sparkling, just like in the movies. The room filled with collective us, everyone moved by the story. But I knew this had never happened. I tried to recall the specific details of that rainy night, but Maddie had already started telling the second story. The second was when we watched the sunrise by Lake Michigan. My heart started racing. We'd never watched a sunrise by the lake. Jake woke me up at 4 in the morning, saying he wanted to show me the most beautiful sunrise of my life. Her voice became tender, full of affection. We drove to the lake, sat on the hood of the car, and watched the sun rise from the water. I felt blood rushing to my head. This absolutely never happened. But Maddie was describing it so vividly, in such detail, as if she'd actually experienced it. "Then there's the third one," she continued, completely oblivious to the expression on my face. "When Jake modeled for my art class." "What?" "I was taking a painting class and needed a model, so Jake volunteered." My hands involuntarily clenched into fists. I'd never taken an art class, let alone modeled for one. "He held the pose for 3 hours," Maddie said with a laugh, complaining the whole time, "but he stuck it out until the end." Our friends were all laughing, thinking I was adorable. But inside, something was beginning to shatter. She kept going, but I couldn't hear anymore. I just mechanically nodded and smiled, pretending these were our memories. But I knew every single story, every detail was fake. The question was, if these weren't our memories, whose were they? That night when we got home, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Maddie was already asleep beside me, snoring softly. But I couldn't sleep at all. Her stories kept replaying in my mind like a disturbing song. The kiss in the rain, the sunrise by the lake, the art class modeling. Each story was so vivid, so detailed, so real. But they weren't our memories. I began systematically recalling our 2 years together. We first met at a friend's birthday party. I remember she wore a red dress and her eyes would scrunch up when she laughed. I remember our first date was going to a movie, then eating pizza at a little restaurant. I remember our first kiss was at her apartment door when her roommate wasn't home. These were real memories, with clear details and genuine emotions. But tonight's stories, I searched my mind for any memory fragments that might be related. Rain? Yes, we had encountered heavy rain once. But we ran into a bookstore and stayed there for an hour, chatting until closing time. No romantic kiss, just us laughing awkwardly because our clothes were soaked. Sunrise? I couldn't even remember us watching a sunset together, let alone a sunrise. I'm not the type to wake up early for a sunrise, and Maddie knew this. She often teased me for being a night owl, saying if I woke up before 6 a.m., I must be sick. Art class? This was even more ridiculous. My artistic talent was limited to drawing charts in Excel spreadsheets. I'd never set foot in an art classroom, let alone stripped down to model. So where did these stories come from? Why would she make up these non-existent memories? More importantly, why could she tell them so vividly, so convincingly? Suddenly, a disturbing thought flashed through my mind. What if these weren't made-up stories? What if these were real memories, just not ours? I thought about those photos on her phone, places I'd never seen. I thought about those occasional details she'd mention, little things I hadn't paid attention to at the time. She'd said she used to love watching sunrises. She'd said she once studied painting. She'd said she liked walking in the rain. All these little details were now forming a complete picture in my mind. These weren't our memories. These were her memories with someone else. But who? She'd never talked in detail about her ex. I knew she'd had a long-term relationship before, but she always said that's in the past and changed the subject. I respected her privacy and never pressed for details. But now I needed to know the truth. I quietly got out of bed and went to the living room. Maddie's purse was on the couch, her phone inside. I knew this was wrong, but I needed answers. I took out her phone and entered her passcode, her birthday. The screen lit up. My hands were shaking, not knowing what I was about to discover. But I knew that whatever it was, it would change everything. I sat on the living room couch, Maddie's phone burning hot in my hands. The streetlight outside filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the room. I took a deep breath and opened her Instagram, starting with the most recent photos and scrolling back. Selfies of us together, photos with friends at parties, her beloved latte art. But as I continued scrolling back to before we met, I saw an unfamiliar face. A tall, handsome man with blonde hair and an athlete's build. Photos of him and Maddie in various places. Beaches, mountaintops, art museums. The timestamps showed these were all taken 3 years ago. I clicked on one of the photos. It was Maddie and this man watching a sunrise by the water. Exactly like the sunrise she'd described tonight. The caption read, "Watched the most beautiful sunrise of my life with Tyler." Tyler. So his name was Tyler. I kept scrolling, each photo like a knife to my heart. A video of Tyler holding Maddie as they ran through the rain, taking shelter at a bus stop, then Tyler pulling Maddie close and kissing her in the rain. Just like she'd described tonight. Exactly the same. My hands started trembling. I found more photos. Tyler modeling in an art classroom while Maddie focused intently on painting him from behind an easel. The caption read, "My model held the pose for 3 hours, complaining the whole time. Every word, every detail, matched perfectly with tonight's story." I switched to the search function and typed Tyler. The first result was Tyler Brooks. I clicked into his profile. His last post was from 3 years ago, a photo of him in a football uniform. The caption read, "State championship, here we come." After 3 years ago, his account had no updates. I Googled his name, and the results shocked me. The first news headline read, "College football star Tyler Brooks dies in car accident." The date was 3 years ago. I clicked the news link, barely able to hold the phone. Tyler Brooks, 21-year-old University of Illinois quarterback, died in a drunk driving accident. According to police reports, Brooks lost control and crashed into a roadside barrier at 2 a.m. I kept reading. Brooks was a star player on the college football team, having just helped the team win the state championship. His teammates and friends were shocked by the tragedy. "Tyler was a good guy," his roommate said. "He had a girlfriend, Madison, and they were planning to get married after graduation." Madison. Maddie's full name was Madison. I felt the room start spinning. All the pieces were falling into place. Tyler Brooks, her college boyfriend. Football star, they dated for 3 years. Those romantic memories, those perfect moments, they were all real. Just not created with me. They were with Tyler. With a dead man. Tonight, in front of our friends. The light in her eyes. The tenderness in her voice. She was recounting memories with Tyler, but pretending they were ours. In her heart, I was just Tyler's replacement. I put the phone back in her purse and returned to the bedroom. Maddie was still sleeping, looking so peaceful, so innocent. But looking at her now, I felt like I'd never really known her. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling until dawn. Tomorrow, I needed to decide what to do. The next day was Monday, and I was restless at the office. I tried to focus on work, but Tyler Brooks' face kept haunting my thoughts. During lunch break, instead of going to the cafeteria, I sat in my car and took out my phone. I needed more information. I needed to know how deep Maddie and Tyler's relationship really was. I thought of someone, Marcus Chen, a friend of Maddie's from college whom we'd met through mutual friends. If anyone knew the truth, it would be him. I dialed Marcus's number. Jake, dude, long time no see. His voice sounded happy. Hey Marcus, I want to ask you about something. What's up? You sound serious. I took a deep breath. About Maddie and her ex-boyfriend Tyler. There was silence on the other end for several seconds. Tyler Brooks? Marcus's voice became cautious. Yes. Do you remember him? Of course I remember. Man, that was a tragedy. Marcus sighed. You know what happened to him, right? Car accident. 3 years ago, right? Maddie was completely devastated. Completely devastated. My heart sank. How much did she love him? Marcus was quiet again for a moment. Jake, I don't know if I should be telling you this. Please tell me. I need to know. All right. He took a deep breath. Tyler and Maddie. They were the kind of couple that made you jealous. You know, the kind of relationship that seemed too perfect to be real. What do you mean? They started dating sophomore year all the way through graduation. Tyler was the star quarterback. Maddie was head cheerleader. They were practically inseparable. I felt something churning in my stomach. Tyler once told us he planned to propose to Maddie right after graduation. He'd even bought a ring. A ring. They were always doing these crazy romantic things together. Like driving to the lake at 4 a.m. to watch the sunrise. Kissing in the rain. Tyler was always coming up with ways to surprise Maddie. Every detail matched last night's stories. Maddie learned to paint because of Tyler, and she'd have him model for her. Tyler would complain about it, but he'd do anything for her. I closed my eyes, feeling the world spin. After Tyler died, Maddie disappeared for a while. She took a semester off and went back home to Texas. When she came back, she was a completely different person. How different? She never talked about Tyler anymore. Never mentioned anything about him. It was like she'd completely sealed away those 3 years of memories. And then she graduated and moved to Chicago. And then she met you. Marcus paused. Jake, I don't want to hurt you, but when I first met you, I was shocked. Why? Because you looked a bit like Tyler. Not exactly the same, but there were similarities. Height, build, even the way you talked. I felt the blood drain from my face. Maddie never told you about Tyler? She just said she'd had a long-term relationship before. But it was over. Over. Marcus laughed bitterly. Yeah, death is definitely over. We were silent on the phone for a while. Jake, what I want to say is, Maddie's a good girl. She's been through a lot of pain. Maybe she just needs time to process all this. Maybe, I said, but I didn't believe it. After hanging up, I sat in my car feeling completely empty. I wasn't just Tyler's replacement. I might have been chosen precisely because I looked like Tyler. This realization was more painful than I'd imagined. I'd always thought our relationship was based on true love, on mutual attraction and understanding. But now I realized I might just be an actor, playing the role of a dead man. And I didn't even know what the script was. This weekend, we'd originally planned to look at wedding dresses and choose venues. Yesterday's me was excited about it. Today's me felt like I was attending my own funeral. We went to a renowned bridal shop downtown. Maddie excitedly tried on various styles of wedding dresses, each one making her look like an angel. Jake, what do you think of this one? She turned around, the white skirt flowing through the air. I looked at her, trying to find the right words. She was indeed beautiful, but I wasn't seeing my fiancée now. I was seeing Tyler's girlfriend, wearing a wedding dress that should have been for Tyler. Beautiful, I answered mechanically. The sales assistant gushed beside us. Your fiancé has such good taste. This dress perfectly complements your skin tone. Maddie smiled happily, but every word felt like needles piercing my skin. When she went into the dressing room to try on the third dress, I sat outside on the couch, imagining whether Tyler and she had ever been to places like this. Had they also discussed their dream wedding? Had they also argued over wedding dress choices? Had Tyler also sat on a couch like this, watching her try on wedding dresses? Jake? Maddie's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She was wearing a simple A-line wedding dress, looking especially elegant and dignified. I think this is the one, she said, tears sparkling in her eyes. For some reason, at that moment I remembered what Marcus had said. Tyler had bought a ring, planning to propose. If he hadn't died, the woman wearing this wedding dress would be the same, but the groom wouldn't be me. What do you think? She asked. Perfect, I said, my voice sounding strange. In the afternoon, we went to look at wedding venues. The first place was a lakeside garden with beautiful sunset views. Imagine, the wedding planner said, when the sun sets over the lake, how romantic your wedding photos will be. Maddie squeezed my hand, nodding excitedly. But I thought about those sunrises she and Tyler had watched together. Had they also dreamed of having a lakeside wedding? The second venue was a historic art museum. There are many artworks as backdrops here, the planner explained, especially suitable for couples with artistic interests. I saw Maddie's eyes light up. I used to study painting, she told the planner. This place is perfect. My fists involuntarily clenched. She'd studied painting for Tyler, not because she truly loved art. We can also arrange a special ceremony, the planner continued, where the groom can paint a portrait of the bride as an eternal memento. That's a wonderful idea. Maddie turned to me. Jake, what do you think? I looked at her expectant eyes, feeling unable to breathe. I can't paint, I said calmly. That's okay. I can teach you, she said. Just like, she suddenly stopped, her face turning pale. Just like what? I asked. Nothing, she said quickly. I mean, you can learn. But I knew what she wanted to say. Just like Tyler. Just like everything Tyler had done for her. That evening when we got home, we sat on the couch discussing everything we'd seen. I think the lakeside garden is nice, Maddie said. It must be beautiful at sunset. Do you like watching sunsets? I asked. Yeah, I've always thought sunrises and sunsets are the most beautiful sights in the world. Sunrises? I asked casually. Do you often watch sunrises? She paused. Before. Sometimes. With whom? She looked at me, panic flashing in her eyes. Jake, why are you suddenly asking about this? Her voice was tense. I took a deep breath. Maddie, those stories you told the other night, us kissing in the rain, going to the lake to watch sunrise, me modeling for you, are these really our memories? Her face completely changed, turning pale as paper. What are you talking about? We never kissed in the rain. I never went to watch sunrise with you. And I never modeled for you. She stood up and started pacing around the room. Jake, you're overthinking this. Those are all our memories. No, they're not. I also stood up. They're yours and Tyler's memories. At the mention of Tyler's name, she froze completely. How do you know about Tyler? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you told everyone our friends about your memories with him, claiming they were ours. Tears began forming in her eyes. Jake, you don't understand. Then make me understand. Tell me the truth. She was silent for a long time, tears streaming down her cheeks. Finally, she whispered, I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to what? Treat me as Tyler's replacement? No. She was crying. I love you, but you want Tyler. She didn't deny it, which was more painful than any admission. I looked at this woman I thought I knew, feeling an unbridgeable chasm between us. She didn't love the real me. She loved the parts of me that resembled Tyler. And I could never become Tyler. We faced each other in the living room, the air thick with tension and pain. Maddie sat on the couch, head down, tears falling continuously. I stood in front of her, holding a piece of paper. This was Tyler Brooks' death certificate that I'd printed that afternoon. I knew this was cruel, but I needed to face reality. We both needed to face reality. Maddie, I need you to honestly answer a few questions. She looked up at me, eyes full of fear. Tyler Brooks died 3 years ago, right? She nodded. You two dated for 3 years from sophomore year to graduation, right? Another nod. He was planning to propose to you, right? She began sobbing loudly. Yes. Those stories, the kiss in the rain, the lakeside sunrise, the modeling. These were all yours and Tyler's memories, right? Yes. Her voice was barely audible. I felt like my chest had been hit by a sledgehammer. Hearing the confirmation was more painful than suspecting. Why? I asked. Why did you tell his memories as if they were ours? She looked up, the pain in her eyes almost unbearable to witness. Because they were so beautiful, she said. The time Tyler and I spent together were the most beautiful memories of my life. When he died, I thought I would die too. She wiped her tears and continued. Took me a long time to stand up again. When I met you, I thought I could start over. But you didn't. I tried, she said. I really tried to forget Tyler and love you wholeheartedly. But those memories were too beautiful. I couldn't bear to let them disappear. I sat in the chair across from her, feeling exhausted. So you decided to make them our memories? It wasn't a decision, she said. Gradually happened. At first, I would just occasionally think about my time with Tyler. Then I began hoping we could have those experiences too. Then you started pretending we actually had those experiences. I wasn't pretending. She defended herself. I just got confused. Sometimes I couldn't tell what was real and what I wished for. I looked at her, trying to understand her pain. But I had my own pain too. Maddie, do you know what this means to me? She shook her head. It means our entire relationship is built on lies. It means you never truly loved me. That's not true, she said urgently. I love you. You don't love me, I said. You love Tyler, you just wish I could become him. She fell silent because she knew I was right. I stood up and walked to the window, looking at the street outside. Marcus told me I look like Tyler. She didn't deny it. So that's why you chose me? Because I reminded you of him? At first, maybe, she admitted quietly. But later I really fell in love with you. Fell in love with which part of me? I turned to look at her. The parts that resembled Tyler or the real me? She couldn't answer because she didn't know herself. I walked back to her and put the death certificate on the coffee table. Tyler died on August 15th, 3 years ago. She nodded. We met in September 3 years ago. She nodded again. So when you met me, Tyler had been dead for less than a month. She began trembling violently. I always thought you'd moved on from your past relationship. But actually, you were just looking for a replacement. Jake, please don't say that. Then what should I say? My voice started rising. Should I say I'm honored to be a dead man's shadow? Tyler is dead, she said. My relationship with him is over. No, it's not over, I said. If it were over, you wouldn't tell his memories as if they were ours. If it were over, you wouldn't close your eyes when we make love. Her face turned even paler. If it were over, you could look at me and see Jake Morrison, not Tyler Brooks' replacement. The room fell into long silence. Finally, I made my decision. I can't live like this anymore, I said. I can't compete with a ghost for your love. Jake, please don't leave me, she cried. I can change. I can forget Tyler. I looked at her, my heart full of sadness. Maddie, you can't force yourself to forget someone you loved. But you also can't force yourself to love someone. I love you. You don't love me, I repeated. You love Tyler's memory, and I'm just the carrier of that memory. I walked toward the bedroom and started packing my things. I'm moving out tonight. She followed me into the bedroom, continuing to plead. Jake, please give me a chance. Please give us a chance. I stopped what I was doing and turned to look at her. If you can honestly tell me that when you're with me, you think of me and not Tyler, I'll stay. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, because she couldn't make that promise. And I couldn't deceive myself anymore. Goodbye, Maddie, I said. I hope you can find true happiness. Being with you is my happiness. No, it's not, I said. Your happiness is in the past, with Tyler. And my happiness is in the future, with someone who truly loves me. I carried my suitcase out of what used to be our home, out of our relationship built on lies, toward an uncertain but at least honest future. I moved in with my brother David. He lived in a quiet neighborhood in suburban Chicago, with a spare room. When I showed up at his door, he didn't ask any questions. Just let me in and poured me a whiskey. Want to talk about it? He asked. Not really. Okay, that's what I liked about David. He knew when to talk and when to keep quiet. But my peace only lasted 3 days. On the 4th morning, the doorbell rang. When David opened the door, I heard a familiar Texas accent. Hello, you must be David. I'm Maddie's mother, Dorothy Thompson. My heart sank. Maddie had called her parents from Texas. We'd like to talk to Jake, a low male voice said. That was her father, Bill Thompson. David glanced at me and I nodded. Running away wouldn't solve anything. The Thompsons walked into the living room. Mrs. Dorothy looked a lot like Maddie, but with the toughness typical of Texas mothers in her eyes. Mr. Bill was a tall man, wearing a plaid shirt and jeans, looking like he'd come straight from a farm. Jake, Dorothy said, we need to talk. Okay. I sat on the couch. David was busy in the kitchen, but I knew he was listening. Maddie told us what happened, Bill said. About Tyler, about those memories. I nodded, waiting for their accusations. Son, Dorothy said, I understand how you feel, but you have to understand what Maddie went through. I understand, I said, but that can't be an excuse for deception. She didn't deceive you. Bill's voice was somewhat stern. She just got confused. Confused? I repeated. She told memories with someone else as if they were ours. That's called confusion? When Tyler died, Maddie almost killed herself, Dorothy said, tears in her eyes. This shocked me. What? She was in the hospital for 2 months. Bill continued. A psychiatric hospital. She had a complete breakdown. I felt the air being sucked from my lungs. She never told me. Because she didn't want you to worry, Dorothy said. When she met you, she finally started recovering. You are her salvation, Jake, Bill said. Without you, she might never have been able to stand up again. I felt immense guilt and confusion. But she doesn't love me. She loves you, Dorothy insisted. Maybe she also loves Tyler's memory, but she really loves you. A woman can't love two men at the same time. A woman can love a living man and the memory of a dead man, Dorothy said. These two kinds of love are different. I stood up and paced around the room. Even so, I can't accept living forever in Tyler's shadow. Then what do you want? Bill asked. To completely forget Tyler? To pretend he never existed? I want a relationship that truly belongs to us. But Tyler is part of Maddie's life, Dorothy said. You can't ask her to erase her past. I'm not asking her to erase the past. I just hope she won't live the past as if it were the present. David came out of the kitchen with 4 cups of coffee. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but I'd like to say something. Everyone looked at him. I heard your conversation and I think Jake is right. The Thompsons looked surprised. I've been married for 10 years, David continued. I know what a healthy relationship is. If my wife treated me as a replacement for her ex-boyfriend, I'd leave too. But Dorothy started to speak. No buts, David interrupted her. Love requires respect. If Maddie can't respect Jake's individuality, can't love him as a unique individual, then this isn't love, it's dependency. The room fell quiet. Finally, Bill sighed. So what should we do? This isn't for us to decide, I said. This is for Maddie to decide. She needs to decide what she wants. To continue living in the past, or to embrace the present. She chose the present, Dorothy said. She chose you. No, she chose the safe option, I said. She chose someone who looked like Tyler but wouldn't die. This was cruel but also true. The Thompsons eventually left without convincing me to return to Maddie. That evening, David and I sat in the backyard, drinking beer. You did the right thing, he said. I hope so. Do you love her? I thought I loved her, I said. But now I'm not sure if I loved the real her or who I thought she was. That's your answer, David said. True love shouldn't make you doubt. He was right. True love should bring certainty, not confusion. Should make you feel safe, not insecure. Should make you become a better version of yourself, not someone else's shadow. Over the next few weeks, Maddie began her win-back campaign. The first time was at my workplace. When I walked out of the office building, I saw her standing in the coffee shop across the street, looking at me through the glass window. She was wearing that blue dress I loved most, her hair in a ponytail, looking like her college days. When our eyes met, she came out. Jake, can we talk? I don't think we have anything to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. I looked at my watch and sighed. 5 minutes. We walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench. I've been thinking about what you said, she began. About Tyler, about our relationship. I waited for her to continue. You were right. I did treat you as Tyler's replacement. At least she admitted it. But I want to change. I want to learn to truly love you. Maddie, you can't learn to love someone. Either you love them or you don't. But I can learn to forget Tyler. I looked at her, feeling both sympathy and exhaustion. You shouldn't forget him. He was an important part of your life. Then what do you want me to do? There was desperation in her voice. I want you to be honest. Honest with yourself, honest with me. I'm trying to be honest. No, you're trying to tell me what you think I want to hear. She fell silent because she knew I was right. 5 minutes were up, and I stood to leave. Jake, she called after me, what if I could create new memories that belong to us? What if we could have our own 8 romantic moments? I stopped and turned to look at her. Maddie, the problem isn't that we don't have new memories. The problem is that you don't treasure the memories we already have. Pain flashed in her eyes. I do treasure them. No, you don't. If you treasured them, you wouldn't have used Tyler's memories to replace ours in front of our friends. The second encounter was at my regular gym. I was on the treadmill when I saw her in the weight area, pretending to do strength training. She obviously didn't know how to use those machines, but she stayed there for an hour, waiting for me to finish. When I walked toward the locker room, she intercepted me. "What a coincidence running into you here," she said, but her acting was terrible. "Maddie, you're stalking me. I'm just trying to stay healthy. You never go to the gym." Her face reddened. "Maybe I want to change some habits." "For what?" "To become the woman you think I want." She didn't answer, but the answer was written on her face. "That's exactly the problem," I said. "You keep trying to change yourself to please others, but you never know who you really are." The third time was the most heartbreaking. I received a package containing a painting. It was of me sitting in the restaurant where we had our first date, focused on reading the menu. The technique was amateur, but you could tell a lot of thought had gone into it. On the back was written, "Our first real memory. Love, Maddie." I stared at this painting for a long time. This was the first time she'd tried to capture our memories instead of Tyler's. But it also made me sadder, because it proved she did know the difference. She just chose to ignore it. I sent her a text. "The painting is beautiful, but it's too late." She immediately replied, "It's never too late. For us, it is." That night, my phone rang 30 times. I didn't answer any of them. The fourth time, and the last, was at our mutual friend Mike's birthday party. I hadn't wanted to go, but David said I couldn't stop socializing because of one woman. Halfway through the party, Maddie showed up. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, with elaborate makeup. She looked beautiful but also like a stranger. "Jake." She approached me. "Can we talk privately?" I looked at our curious friends around us and nodded. We walked to Mike's backyard. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice steady. "I'm listening." "I love Tyler," she said. "I always will. He was my first love, the person I thought I'd spend my life with." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "But Tyler is dead." Her voice began to tremble. "He's dead, and I'm alive. I have the right to start over, the right to love again." "Of course. I love you too, Jake," she said. "Maybe at first it was because you reminded me of Tyler, but not anymore. Now I love you because you're Jake Morrison." I looked at her, wanting to believe her words. "How can you be sure?" "Because if Tyler were alive, if I had to choose between you two, I would choose you." This shocked me. "Why?" "Because Tyler loved the college version of me. That young, naive girl who needed to be taken care of," she said. "But you love the current me, mature, flawed, real me." I felt something loosening inside. "Maddie, I know I hurt you," she continued. "I know I made mistakes. But please give me a chance to prove that I can belong only to you." I looked at her and saw sincerity in her eyes. But I also remembered the months of pain and doubt. "I need time," I said. "I'll wait." "Maybe you should learn to be alone first," I said. "Learn to make peace with Tyler's memory. Learn to be your true self again." She nodded, tears in her eyes, but also understanding. "I will." We hugged, and then I left the party. That was our last real conversation. Thanksgiving came, and I decided to go back to my hometown in northern Illinois. My parents lived in a small town called Holland, known for its tulips and lakeside scenery. I needed to get away from Chicago, away from all those memory-laden places. Coming home felt strange. My old room was still the same as in high school, with college football team posters and graduation photos on the walls. Mom made my favorite roast turkey and pumpkin pie, and Dad and I watched Thanksgiving football games on TV. Everything was normal, safe, familiar. On Thanksgiving afternoon, I went to the town coffee shop to buy coffee beans. When I pushed open the door, I saw a familiar figure. Maddie was sitting at a corner table, holding a cup of hot chocolate. She looked surprised when she saw me. "Jake, what are you doing here?" "I should be asking you that question," I said. "Holland is 3 hours from Chicago. My cousin lives here," she said. "Jessica Chin. Do you remember her?" I remembered a girl I'd met a few times in college. "I remember. She invited me for Thanksgiving," Maddie said. "I didn't know you were here too." I wasn't sure if I believed this was really a coincidence, but I didn't want to argue. "Want to sit down and chat?" she asked. I hesitated, then sat across from her. "You look good," I said. Indeed. She looked more peaceful and natural than the last time I'd seen her. "I've been in therapy," she said. "Twice a week." "How's it going?" "Difficult but helpful," she said. "I'm learning how to deal with losing Tyler, learning how not to let the past control the present." I nodded. This sounded like a good start. "I thought about what you said," she continued, "about treasuring our memories. I wanted to prove to you that I do remember our memories. She took a small notebook from her bag. I wrote down all the good times we spent together. Real memories, not Tyler's. She opened the notebook and began reading. We first met at Mike's birthday party. You were wearing a blue checkered shirt, talking about programming with David in the kitchen. This was correct. Our first date was to see Avengers, then eating at Tony's Pizza. You ordered pepperoni pizza. I ordered margarita. Also correct. Our first kiss was at my apartment door. You were nervous and bumped into the door frame. I smiled. This had indeed happened. She continued reading several memories, each accurate and full of real details. See, she said, I do remember our memories. Then why didn't you tell these stories that night? She was quiet for a moment. Because these memories didn't have the drama of Tyler's. Drama? Tyler always did crazy romantic things. Driving to watch sunrise at 4 a.m., kissing in the rain. These stories sound more suitable for sharing with friends. And our memories? Our memories are more quiet, she said, but also more real. I looked at her, trying to understand her logic. Maddie, do you think love has to be dramatic to be worth sharing? She thought about it. Maybe I used to think that way. And now? Now I realize that the best love stories aren't the ones that look perfect, but the ones that are real. We sat quietly for a while. If I asked you to tell our 8 most beautiful moments, could you do it? I asked. She looked at me, some nervousness in her eyes. I could try. Okay, try. She took a deep breath and began remembering. First, after our first date on the drive home, we sat in the car listening to the radio and talked for 2 hours. Second, Christmas morning when you made me breakfast, even though you burned the eggs. Third, she paused. I can't remember. My heart sank. It's okay, I said. Continue. But she could only come up with 5 memories, and 2 of them had incorrect details. In contrast, I could clearly recall every important moment we'd spent together. Every date, every hug, every deep conversation. The comparison was cruel but clear. I did love her wholeheartedly, while she was trying to love me, but her heart was elsewhere. I'm sorry, she said, tears in her eyes. So am I said. We both knew this was our final goodbye. 6 months later, spring came to Chicago. I moved out of David's place and rented a 1-bedroom apartment near Lincoln Park. There were new developments at work too. I was promoted to senior software engineer, leading a brand new project. More importantly, I began rediscovering myself. I signed up for photography classes, a skill I'd always wanted to learn but never had time for. Every weekend, I'd walk around the city with my camera, capturing ordinary but beautiful moments. I joined a hiking club and began exploring the natural landscapes of Illinois and Wisconsin. Hiking brought me inner peace and introduced me to a group of like-minded friends. I learned to be alone, to enjoy my own company. I no longer needed others to define my worth. One Saturday afternoon, I was at the Chicago Art Institute viewing an Impressionist exhibition. As I stood in front of Monet's water lilies, I heard a familiar voice. It's really beautiful, isn't it? I turned around and saw Maddie. She was wearing a simple white shirt and black pants, her hair shorter than before. She looked peaceful. Hi, Jake, she said with a natural smile. Hi, Maddie. We stood side by side in front of the painting, neither speaking. You look good, she said. So do you. I moved downtown, she said. Got a new job at a nonprofit doing marketing. Sounds good. I'm still in therapy, she continued. I've learned a lot about myself. I nodded without asking for details. Jake, she said, I want to apologize for the past. Not because I want to win anything back, but because you deserve a sincere apology. I looked at her and saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. True peace. I accept your apology, I said. I hope you're happy, she said. I hope you find someone who truly treasures you. I hope you're happy too, I said. I hope you find your true self. We hugged, and then she left. This time, there was no pain, no regret, just a sense of closure. I continued touring the museum, feeling much lighter. As I walked out of the museum, there was a girl sitting on the steps, sketching the building's outline. She had chestnut hair and a focused expression. Nice drawing, I said. She looked up and smiled at me. Thanks. I'm Sarah, a student at the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm Jake, I said. I just started learning photography. Really? Her eyes lit up. Did you bring your camera? I held up the camera in my hand. Could I see some of your photos? We sat on the steps, and I showed her some cityscape photos I'd taken recently. These are really good, she said. You have a great sense of composition. I'm still learning. We're all learning, she said. Art is a process of continuous learning and growth. We talked for an hour about art, about Chicago, about life. Sarah was interesting, genuine, focused on the present moment. When she talked about painting, there was pure passion in her eyes. When she laughed, the whole world became brighter. Want to go take photos together? I asked. I know some great spots. I'd love to, she said. As we walked toward our next destination together, I realized this was a new beginning. Not because Sarah reminded me of anyone, but because she was herself. Not because I wanted to forget the past, but because I was ready to embrace the future. I thought about my relationship with Maddie, no longer with pain, only gratitude, because it taught me what true love really is. True love is being your authentic self in the sunlight, not becoming someone else's shadow.